What's up? Um, all right. What am I doing today? The book I'm going to read today is Old Turtle Questions of the Heart. It's the book for today. By story by Douglas Wood, illustrations by Greg Ruth. I haven't read this book before, so I'm going to read it and respond to it, and then we'll do another one later. Why? I don't know. So, here we go. It had been a long time, so long that many had forgotten or had begun to doubt that such a being as Old Turtle had ever really existed. She was only legend, perhaps, a story told late at night to make the shadows seem less dark, the evening fires a bit more bright. But the people had questions that haunted their sleep and troubled their waking hours, questions that hung like veils of mist, hiding the morning sun. Questions, perhaps, for Old Turtle. But how to find her? Even if the stories were true, who knew what road to follow? What map could show the way? The old woman will know, someone said, for it was the old woman's own grandmother, so the story went, who had once found Old Turtle herself, who had made the journey as a very little girl. So to the old woman the people went. Yes, the stories are true, she said. There is such a being, old as the stony hills themselves, but there is no map to follow and no road, only the old, overgrown paths and the ancient track of the sun and the moon. You follow these and the whisperings of your own heart, and you will find your way. Perhaps I can travel with you. Perhaps I can help. And so a trusted few were chosen to travel with the old woman, to find Old Turtle, to speak for the people, and to ask their most important questions. They began their journey upon traces of the old familiar trails. When the old paths ran out, they found new ones or made their own. The people traveled together, yet each carried alone the weight of his or her questions, until finally, guided by the whispering of their hearts, they found Old Turtle. Sit with me among the flowers, said Old Turtle, in the shelter of the trees. Ask your questions, and I will try to help. So I was a young man, uncertain about the journey of life before him and worried about his many choices and challenges, asked, why are we here, Old Turtle? What is our purpose in life? Within your question is its own answer, said Old Turtle. For the purpose of life is life. We live that there might be more of life in the world, more liveliness, more beauty, more generosity, more variety, more of the gift of life itself. Some seem to do this gracefully, almost without effort and without thinking, while others must think hard about their task, about their place in the living world. The flowers of this field fulfill their lives in the abundance of their beauty. It is the pleasure of the flowers to give more than simple need requires. They adorn the earth and perfume the air, and they clearly say, without the gift of speech, that life is good and sweet. And though sometimes tangled in thorns, it is crowned with loveliness. Each and every being in its being is an expression of life, and no one lives alone. We all live for one another, and in doing so, we fulfill ourselves. We find our purpose. A woman with a spark of laughter in her eyes, but whose face was lined with care, asked, "How do we find happiness, old turtle?" Gently, old turtle answered, "Happiness is forever sought," said old turtle, "but cannot be found any more than an apple tree can find the apples to place upon its branches. Happiness is the unbidden fruit of our lives. It is the harvest of our growth and the gift of our own giving. Happiness is the long chased butterfly that finally lands upon the shoulder of one who has put aside his net and simply stands quietly in the sun. And when it arrives, it lands so softly it is barely noticed. But remember, just as the day knows the night, no one can know real happiness who has not also been touched by sorrow. Each is a part of the other, interwoven threads in the fabric of life. "Please tell us about family," said a young girl. There was a hint of shyness in her voice, but her eyes were clear and bright. "Family is the doorway into the house of life, little one," said Old Turtle. "When you are very young, your family is all the world and everything in it. The stars shine in your father's eyes. The sun rises in your mother's smile. When your family gathers around a table together, it seems that all the world is there. And in many ways, this is true. For our family is the world made small enough to hold. Family is the breeze that lifts the kite of your childhood into the sky, and it is the string that ties you safely to the earth. Without its string, no kite can fly. Family is a living tree, and it is also the root of your own young tree, allowing you to stretch your branches towards the sun. But no family is perfect, said Old Turtle. Sometimes the string becomes frayed, the tree stunted or poorly tended. The extra care and support is needed to mend the string, to nurture young roots and lift broken branches to the sky. No one can say all that a family is, said Old Turtle, nor does any family fulfill itself completely. There comes a time when you learn that your family is not all the world after all, that the world is wider than any family's arms can reach. But this is as it should be. Then, perhaps, a new family is begun, and the world is once more made small enough to hold. "Can you tell us about the play, Old Turtle?" asked the little boy. When you play, you do the work of heaven, said Old Turtle. To play alone is to make life's own heart your companion, she said. To learn for yourself the blue of the sky, the green of the grass, the feel of the dew upon your feet, to know that the world was made for you and is yours to discover, as much as anyone who's ever lived. But to play with a friend is to find your joy increased. For if you learn well in the school of play, you will feel your own happiness in your friend's smile, hear your own voice in her laughter, and discover the truth that happiness shared is happiness doubled. There are lessons learned in play that can be learned in no other way, said Old Turtle. Lessons that last all your life. But sometimes grown-ups forget and need children to remind them. Old Turtle smiled. Boys and girls must be patient teachers. A man who sat uneasily, eyes darting, said, Speak to us of evil. Old Turtle paused, breathing slowly. That's Cleopatra. Old Turtle paused, breathing slowly, and it seemed that all the world breathed with her. Finally, she spoke. It has been said that what we call evil is simply live turned backward upon itself, she murmured. For evil is the opposite of life, the stunting and twisting of life to dark and bitter ends. Where life reaches for light, evil would deny the light's existence. Where life fulfills itself in variety and diversity, each flower and tree growing as it should, evil would impose its way upon all, seeking to remake others in its own likeness, answering only its own selfish desires. Where life is large and broad and deep, oh, ever flowing, ever changing, ever giving, evil from the start is small, concerned only with itself, becoming a foul and stagnant pool. Something else is often called evil, and that is simply the loss of balance. Not even the good earth, with all its tides and seasons in balance all the time, is still and changeless. We experience times of plenty and times of hope, times of loss and hardship. Yet even when balance seems lost, there remains a greater hidden balance. Destruction brings renewal. The wild wind that may someday topple these old trees will also open the forest canopy to the sun. The young ones may grow and seek the light. It is our challenge to dwell in harmony with this deep, abiding balance at the heart of life, to live not as refugees from darkness, but as seekers of light. Now, the old woman, stooped by the weight of many years and of loved ones lost, asked, And what of death, Old Turtle? Old Turtle's gentle voice became even softer, and her eyes blinked slowly. Death is but the shadow cast by our living, said Old Turtle. It comes to all of us, Yet because we love, it causes much fear and pain. Some fear that in death we may dissolve into nothingness, as if it were from nothing we had come. But it is not in the nature of things that something comes from nothing. These trees that brush the clouds did not come from nothing, nor do the clouds themselves, neither the rose nor the stone, the river or the raindrop. All things that are come from something and someplace else that is. There is no great nothingness to claim us. Rather, in death, we merely return to the source of our life. Others worry that in death we may be all alone, but our lives issue forth from a living root that nourishes every branch and every blossom, each connected to the other. All those who have ever loved and lost are blossoms that have bloomed and fallen, returning to the root that gave them life. In joining them, how could we ever be alone or lost? Death is but the shadow that life casts. It is always with us, and to fear it is to fear life itself. The old woman's eyes glistened, and for a long time the people sat in silence, breathing the perfume of the flowers, resting in the dancing shadows of the trees. Now, my children, said Old Turtle, her voice as gentle as the breeze among the blossoms, there is one more question you have not asked, perhaps the most important one of all. It is a question that is asked by every dawn, a question of the rising sun and of the light that fills the world. It is a question whispered by the first morning breeze and by the bird that sings the first daybreak song. It is asked by the great world all around you, and it is asked by a small, still voice inside of you. If you listen closely, you will surely hear it. The little girl spoke. I do not hear it, Old Turtle. I don't hear the question. But the old woman smiled. It is true, my child, she said. Every dawn brings a question only the heart can answer, a question only the heart can hear. Who are you, and how will you live this day? But where is the answer, grandmother? The children asked. We give our answer each and every day, said the old woman, in all that we do and in all the choices we make. Our answer is there in the way that we treat one another, in the courage we must find to face a challenge. It is there in our eyes when we choose to look for beauty, and in our hands when we reach out to help someone. It is in our minds when we strive to understand, and in our hearts when we choose to love. It is there, I think, even in all the other important questions that we ask, and in our journey to find the answers. Then the old woman wrapped the children gently in her arms and held them, and they laid their heads against Old Turtle's great shell. And softly, so softly it was more a feeling than a sound, they heard Old Turtle say, You are the answer, little ones. The person you try to be each day is your answer to the whispered question of the dawn. Now, my friends, you have traveled far and you have a long journey still ahead. It was the question in your hearts that brought you here, and your hearts will guide you safely home. As you travel, remember this: although the path of life may be hard and rough and winding, there is no question the heart can ask for which it cannot find an answer. And as the children hugged Old Turtle one last time, as the people began their long journey home, a breeze sighed in the trees, and the flowers breathed their sweetness into the air. And Old Turtle smiled. I think it's pretty beautiful. I think there's something about children's books also that really kind of boils everything down in a way that is succinct, that is, well, not all children's books, but this one, succinct, true. I feel like sometimes if we could explain complex things as if we were speaking to a child, or even in the chaos of the world, see people and see that little child that they used to be. Remember that child that they were, that child that still is somewhere in them, and speak to that. This the part of it about death is very interesting to me. Reminds me of a song by Switchfoot called "The Shadow Proves the Sunshine." The shadow proves the sunshine is it's all in that the phrasing right there. Because of the shadow, we know that the sun shines. So even in the darkness, because the darkness exists, we know that there is light. And if there was no darkness, that would mean there was no light. And could one appreciate joy without sorrow? I think we live in a world that where we try to extricate ourselves from shadow and emotions that are labeled as negative, which I think is just energy moving, you know. I have moments like that from myself. Energy moving, energy that just is trying to get from one place to another in my body or in my body, my soul, my sphere, what have you. And this pain that sometimes it's just so much. And it's just trying to find its way out. Um, that the idea that there's that simple question, that still question in the heart that we get to answer every day, how we live. I think also in a world that it feels harrowing, more and more harrowing. I think there's something so beautiful about the choice we have every day when we wake up about how we live, that we can answer the question of how we want to live and how we want to be in the world every day. Because with each breath is opportunity, is possibility, is and from the smile that we give to people, that we give to ourselves, to the courage we have when we speak up for others or ourselves. We have choice in how we live and how we approach every day, you know? Um, the evil was interesting here. Just we just get something else is often called evil, and that is simply the loss of balance. Not even the good earth with all its tides and seasons is in balance all the time, still and changeless. I think that that's such a huge element of the discontent of living, accepting the seasons, accepting the seasons and the changing of things, and that nothing is in bloom all the time. There's no living thing that is in bloom all the time. If it does not decay and break down to be born again in some way, shape, or form, then it was never alive. It's never truly living. And labeling the process of living, which includes the peaks and the valleys, labeling the valleys as evil, just makes us afraid of the fall and the winter of life. Like imagine if every time fall came, we acted as though they were like devils and demons and all of this other, like that there was, torment because somehow the plants, the trees, the flowers that were there die and decay, and the trees are barren, and that caused such alarm. But I think that's what we do. And I also think that it's very interesting the delineation between like what is actually evil and what isn't. Like seasons changing and evolving and moving and growing. It's not evil. That is life. That is life. That is the process of living. Evil, evil. If life and living is expansive, life reaches for light, as it says here, evil would deny the light's existence. Where life fulfills itself in variety and diversity, each flower and tree growing as it should, and each flower and tree having its own life cycle. Like evil wants to impose its way upon all, like trying to make everything super uniform and super, in its own likeness, like denying the individuality and the specificity in each thing, in each seed, in each being. There's a smallness to that. Trying to force everyone into an idea of how they should be, or someone's world into idea of how we should be. That is very interesting to me. It's also this. Oh, let me get back to you. All right, bye.